So Biden announced this, that the ERA, which enshrines equal protection under the law regardless of gender, is now law of the land, is now part of the Constitution. Is it true? Well, the short answer is no, but the long answer is possibly. So let's see what critics say about this and what the reality is. Two things are being criticized. Number one, that the deadline for ratification has passed, and number two, that adding this amendment to our Constitution would open some sort of a Pandora's box that would include prohibition from bathrooms that have different genders, prohibition from jails having different areas for male and female, and prohibiting schools from having different genders for athletic teams. So let's take a look at these criticisms, shall we? About the ratification deadline, yes, that has technically passed. When Congress passed the law in 1972, they also passed a resolution that said the deadline for ratification, eventually, they postponed it, but eventually 1982 came and went, and there weren't enough votes to ratify the amendment. Now, enough votes were reached in 2020, but that is well after the deadline of 1982, and that's why critics are now saying that ratification is not valid. But what those critics don't take into account is the fact that the Constitution doesn't set a deadline for ratification. That deadline can be set by Congress, and in the case of the ERA, was set within the resolution, not within the text of the amendment itself. And that means that while that deadline passed, it's simply in a congressional resolution. Congress can issue another resolution and ratify validly that 28th Amendment without needing to restart everything from zero. Now, about the implications on our daily life of an amendment like this. This is the exact text of the amendment. It basically says that federal laws and state laws cannot use gender to diminish or to deny equal protection under the law. This is literally all it says, and yet right-wing journalists call it a radical feminist amendment. To say that an amendment like this will cause gender-specific bathrooms or gender-specific prisons to disappear is pure fear-mongering. What they're really afraid of is that the amendment will do what it's intended to do, solve problems like gender pay gap and, of course, gender-based violence. Those arguments are as silly as those opposing interracial marriage when they were saying that allowing people of different races to marry would open the door to things like marrying your pets or marrying things. It's just pure fear-mongering. Clear proof is in the fact that constitutions all over the world already have enshrined equal protection under the law for both men and women. France, Germany, Spain, Canada, my birth country of Italy that has had a constitution since the 1940s, all of them have enshrined equal rights for men and women. None of these countries have experienced any of the issues that those detractors are talking about. So while it's technically true that this is an inaccurate statement because the ERA hasn't been certified, to categorically say that it cannot be certified because the deadline for ratification is passed is inaccurate. And to say that if the amendment were to pass, it would lead to catastrophic consequences for our known law is, well, let's say that it's old white men being old white men.